Ellie is jumping off the bed right now, or she's trying to find a new spot. Are you comfortable? I think so. Good girl. Today I wanted to talk about hygge and happiness. So, for some background, in 2017, I visited Copenhagen in Denmark, and I learned about the concept of hygge. And during this time, I did some research about hygge, and I kept seeing articles about happiness pop up during my search. And this really piqued my interest because I wanted to see if there was some sort of relationship or correlation between this concept of hygge and happiness. And if there's a way to incorporate hygge into my own life and basically increase my levels of happiness, because who doesn't want to be happy, right? So I'm going to dive into this topic. First, I'm going to talk about what hygge actually is, and then I'm going to get into how happiness is going to be defined. And then I'm going to share some of my thoughts about this book that I read about hygge and dive into some of the concepts that are in that book. And then finally, I'm going to talk about how I incorporate hygge into my daily life, or at least try to, in order to increase my own levels of happiness. So first, what is hygge? It's an interesting word, and it's spelled Hygge, and it's pronounced hygge. So I'm going to read from Denmark's country website, and it says that, in brief, hygge is about taking time away from the daily rush to be together with people you care about, or even by yourself, to relax and enjoy life's quieter pleasures. Hygge is often about informal time together with family or close friends. Typically, the setting is at home or another quiet location. It usually involves sharing a meal and wine or beer or hot chocolate. There is no agenda. You celebrate small joys of life or maybe discuss deeper topics. So what I got from this is that hygge means a lot of things, and it's really tough to kind of combine it into a few words, but essentially the words that came to mind were a cozy, warm, comfortable environment where there is a sense of trust, a sense of closeness, a sense of being safe. Hygge really puts value on quality over quantity. So the quality of the friendships that you have, even if it might be one or two people, it's just that sense of closeness, and when you spend time with them, you feel safe. So for the second piece of this, I'm going to talk about happiness and what that kind of looks like and how happiness is measured, at least in this podcast. So I've looked specifically at the World Happiness Report, and this is an annual publication that is published by the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. And essentially, this is a Gallup poll that reviews the state of happiness in the world. And it dives into what factors can ultimately impact happiness and what this looks like across all countries in the world. So as I said, the report is a poll, and this poll is essentially based on individuals' own assessment of their lives. And this poll covers 6 major areas. So I'm going to list them out. The 6 major areas are GDP, or gross domestic product per capita, social support, healthy life expectancy, freedom, generosity, and corruption. And the reason why I wanted to look at this poll is because Denmark and many of the other Scandinavian countries consistently rank at the top of the list. Or, Denmark was even ranked number 1 for a number of years in a row. So this was really interesting to me, and I wanted to kind of dive into if the concept of hygge has anything to do with how happy Scandinavians are, or at least perceive themselves to be in this poll. Now, I know that there are a lot of different factors that can impact happiness, so I wanted to kind of start off with a bit of a disclaimer. There are a lot of nuances that go into this topic, and obviously a concept like hygge is not a single solution to many of the real issues that many countries face and many citizens of those countries face. So I'll get into a bit of that a bit later, but I wanted to provide that disclaimer, knowing that, there are a lot of really real issues and really important factors that go into an individual's perception of happiness. And I think a good way to sum up this disclaimer is from an article in the New Yorker. And it says, perhaps Scandinavians are able to appreciate the small hygge things in life because they already have the big ones nailed down. Free university, education, social security, universal health care, efficient infrastructure, paid family leave, and at least a month of vacation per year. With those necessities secured, Danes are free to become aware of the decoupling between wealth and well-being. After our basic needs are met, more money doesn't lead to more happiness. Instead, Danes are good at focusing on what brings them a better quality of life. So I think this really sums it up very well, is that Danes are really able to dive into the factors that lead to their happiness and work on improving that because they have a lot of their basic needs met. So I think that's a really important disclaimer here. So now I want to go into talking about a book that I found super interesting on this topic. The book is called The Little Book of Hygge by Mike Wiking. And this book really goes into detail about what hygge is and how the concept of hygge can relate to happiness. So I'm going to go into a few things that the book points out, and then after that I'm going to talk about specific things that I like to do to increase hygge in my own life and help with my own happiness. So the first thing that this book states, that's a concept of hygge that really relates to happiness, is number 1, welfare state. So basic needs are met. And this is what I was mentioning before. Essentially, the key piece of this is that in order to reduce stress and uncertainty, people know that their basic needs are met. They know that they're going to be able to put food on the table. They know that they have a roof over their head. They know that they can attend university for little to no cost. they know that their infrastructure is in a good place, so they don't have to worry about getting around, so on and so forth. They know that, they can take time off from work, and they know that rest is something that's very important. And they know that they're going to be paid a livable wage in the country that they live in. So the first piece of this is, again, welfare state. And that's just ensuring that people's basic needs are met. The second aspect that this book goes into is social support and trust. So the concept of hygge really emphasizes the importance of togetherness with people that you love and trust, whatever that looks like. So this could be spending time with, one or two friends that you really love to spend time with and that you feel safe with and that you feel like you can be open and talk with them. Quality time with friends and family is heavily prioritized in hygge. So again, it's just emphasizing that quality over quantity and emphasizing that sense of community and close-knitness and just having that circle of trust, basically. The next piece of hygge is being present or finding presence in everyday moments. So this to me means kind of finding the small joys in life and the small joys in the mundane. And also seeing the good in the current moment. So this to me also looks like shifting the focus away on what you could have, should have, or would have done, or what you could, should, or would do, and really spending time to be present. So that concept of being present is super important to hygge, and it's one of the main factors that it stresses. The next one is one of my favorites, and it's the concept of indulgence and savoring. So hygge really likes to stress like indulgent foods. So think of like hot chocolate, cakes, pastries, and really putting importance on enjoying these things and spending time indulging in these foods. And, I think that piece of it I really like because I also love to indulge in desserts and whatnot. And then also another piece that comes with this indulgence and savoring is sharing that with the people in your circle of trust, and also spending time to actually make these things. So like, spending time making a cake for your friends and inviting your friends over and enjoying the cake together. Like that whole atmosphere is considered very hygge. And then finally, finding happiness in everyday moments. This is a very important piece of hygge because it's essentially finding satisfaction with what you have and accepting that it's good enough. So I think we spend a lot of time trying to chase things that will bring us more happiness instead of just sitting in the moment and appreciating the things that we do have and accepting that, maybe what I have is enough and finding happiness within that. So these are kind of some of the aspects of hygge that this book goes into. The book also talks about kind of more tangible concepts of hygge, which I want to briefly go over. So I want to kind of spend some time setting the scene. So one piece of hygge that's super important is setting the atmosphere. So lighting candles, turning down the lights, these are ways that you can kind of set the atmosphere of hygge. Again, being present, putting down your phone, spending some time in the moment with your thoughts and contemplating, different pieces or aspects of your life, or just noticing things around you. Indulgence, again, enjoying cakes and desserts and hearty meals and stews, a very important concept of hygge. And sharing those things with others, so equality, basically sharing these indulgences. If you make a cake, part of the joy is actually sharing that with someone else and savoring that moment together. Another tangible concept is gratitude. So practicing gratitude, although super cliche, I think is a really important piece of hygge. Is just, being grateful for the things that you have and appreciating those things, basically. Another concept is harmony. So the idea of removing competition and, kind of meeting people where they're at. I feel like in our society today, we spend a lot of time competing with people around us, trying to have a better car or, better clothes or whatever it might be, or a better job, just constantly reaching for higher and higher peaks. So in hygge, part of that is finding harmony. So just being able to accept that there's always going to be somebody more successful than you. There's always going to be somebody that's more talented than you and is in something else. So it's just finding acceptance that it's trying to find acceptance of, not trying to compete with people all the time, because that just doesn't create a lot of harmony. Another tangible concept of hygge is comfort. Now, this is super important. So think of like blankets and socks and warmth and, coziness. All of those things are very important to hygge and creating an environment where you feel comfortable. Another one is truce. So basically keeping discussions that can be divisive, for example, politics or things like that, keeping those conversations for another time. So if you have friends that come over, sometimes focusing on more lighthearted conversations and talking about things that are positive or that bring you happiness, that's another way to create an environment that has a lot of hygge in it and could potentially lead to you feeling better after those interactions with your friends. Again, another topic is togetherness, so creating memories with those that you love, friends and family, whoever it is that you trust and care about. Just being together and creating those memories is a really important concept for finding happiness. And then finally, shelter. So having that sense of trust and community with the people that you let into your space and your life and that you spend time with. This concept of shelter basically to me means feeling safe with the people that you're surrounded with. And when you have that sense of security, it definitely contributes to a more happy life. I'm going to talk about how I use hygge for my own happiness and kind of talk about specific things that I like to do. So the first thing that I love to do is to host a dinner party with close friends. And when I do this, I like to kind of make my home as comfortable as possible. So I set up lots of candles. The lighting is, more dim. It's comfortable, setting out the blankets, basically creating an environment that's super comfy that, when my friends come over, we can all just kind of sit on the couch together in blankets and spend some time, chit-chatting and all of that. I love to also play board games with my friends, so I try to turn off the TV and spend some time, playing board games or card games, something where we can all interact with each other, and it creates like this super cozy environment. I also love to make desserts for my friends. So if I know my friends are coming over, I like to make brownies or, another type of dessert that I can share with people, and we can have some beer, some wine, whatever it is. Just having and hosting a dinner party is something that I love to do. I always feel really rejuvenated after this. Usually a lot of social settings or social things make me super anxious, but for some reason, like inviting my friends over for, even if it's like a coffee or something, just having the people that I trust over and spending some quality time with them, I always feel super rejuvenated and happy and warm. So that's the first thing I love to do to kind of contribute to my own happiness. The second thing is I tend to have earlier mornings because of my job. So one of the things that I really like to do is make a coffee or tea in the morning before I start my work. And this brings me a lot of happiness because the environment is super quiet. I can kind of sit with my thoughts for a little bit before I turn my brain on essentially for work. I love coffee. I love having, a warm beverage. So it just kind of gives me a little bit of time, like a peaceful moment before I start work. And I think that really puts me in a positive mindset for the day. I also like to find joy in a lot of the more mundane things. So things that I like to do that bring me a lot of happiness are painting. I also love to pet my dog. Just spending time with her brings me a lot of happiness. Sitting in a park, sitting in the sun, things like that. Or, if I really need like a happiness reset, I think those things are things that I like to do in order to find joy. Another thing I love to do is find a cozy coffee shop and just enjoy a cappuccino or something and enjoy a pastry while people watching. I think that is a super cozy environment, and it brings me a lot of joy because I kind of have moments to be with myself and contemplate things, but also I can kind of see, I love people watching. I don't know why that brings me a lot of peace, but just seeing what other people are doing, seeing other people having, conversations or catching up or whatever it is at a coffee shop, it just brings me a lot of happiness. And the final thing that I want to talk about is the concept of hygge is really tied heavily to the home. So one thing that I really like to do is spend time making my home or apartment as cozy as possible. So for me, what this looks like is incorporating a lot of like wood and natural elements into the home. So I love furniture that has a lot of like white oak, just because to me it brings a lot of warmth, but also kind of, it's not super busy, so it's just like easy to look at, and it's just very seamless. Another piece that's really important to me is lighting. So for me, having like warm, diffused light is something I really wanted to incorporate into my apartment. So I like to pick a lot of lights that have, they're kind of like, what are they called? They're like bulbs, and the bulbs they could be of like frosted glass or like paper or something, but it's essentially, it diffuses the light bulb that's in it and creates a more soft lighting situation. So, when it's nighttime, I like to have all the ceiling lights off, but just leave on all of the lamps, and that really creates like a super comfortable and cozy environment. Also, having a comfortable couch and a comfy bed, something essentially that I look forward to crawling into bed at the end of the day, or something I look forward to when I come home from work is, sitting on the couch with my dog. The couch is super comfortable, so having that was really important to me. Also, just having lots of blankets and candles around. Also, lots of plants. I think plants bring me a huge sense of peace. So just having lots of plants and succulents makes the home super comfortable for me. And essentially for my apartment, I really wanted to focus on making it a place that I want to spend time in and a place that I want to come back to. So, even if I have a super stressful day, I know that at home I can find a lot of peace and it's comfortable, so I feel safe. To kind of bring this to a close, there are a ton of factors that go into happiness, and obviously there's no easy or one-size-fits-all solution. I think there are a lot of basic needs that need to be met. I think once those basic needs are met, Hygge is a concept that anyone can really use to integrate more happiness into their lives. So that sense of trying to find comfort and trying to find a close-knit group of people that you feel safe with, and finding comfort with, spending time with those people, or even finding time to do things on your own that bring you a lot of happiness. Those are aspects of Hygge that I think anyone can incorporate into their lives. That is really helpful. And finding joy in the little things. I think that's an aspect where, being present is super important to happiness. So there are a lot of pieces of Hygge that can be incorporated to help improve happiness in your life. And it's definitely something that I try to be more aware of on the day-to-day. Obviously, I can't do it every single day. I forget, other things come up. But, any time that I notice myself going through a rough patch or feeling down, I definitely try to go back to the concept of Hygge in order to find a way out of it, or at least try and make myself a little bit more comfortable, or seek help from others, or even just like having a dinner party is always really great. And if you want a good book recommendation, I highly recommend reading, it was called The Little Book of Hygge by Mike Viking. It's a really cute coffee table book. I love having it around. I just kind of leave it on the table, and it's fun to flip through, and it's just nice to have around when you want something to look at. So yeah, thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.